Alright, welcome everybody. Episode 6 of Cult of Rig. And let me switch my other monitor. So, where we left it the last time, and actually let me get Mischief because we could do a little bit of overlay drawing today. Where we left it last time, we were in a decent enough place, I guess, for the actual offset of the footroll. We have some silly animation, we're seeing mirrored. We hooked up an angle here. I wasn't decided whether I wanted to hook that up or not, so ended up deciding against it. Now, there's something that we really need to do next, which is we want to hook these up the same way these are, but this is running forward FK style from the angle, whereas this is running backwards, so not all the angles are valid. We need to find a solution for that. It's not too hard, we'll get to work on it. And there's a couple caveats, so I will not do it right immediately. I will actually show you what the issue is because I think it's useful. So what we want to get is, we know that this is going to be our FK angle control. And we know that that's going to be word aligned because that's normally the way you want that. Okay, you don't want odd offsets or the feet parting away regardless of what the anatomy says. So, you know, that's kind of established, not too hard. It also makes our life a lot easier because it means that we're working with the basis vectors, and the basis vectors are basically these three things if you want your X, Y, and Z. So what we want to do is find, and this is why I wanted Mischief on. Let me get these. So we have right now, because we're working this way, we could probably easily enough. I need a bigger brush. Yes, I definitely need a bigger brush. And to do that, I might actually want my UI back. There's some terrible jokes there in like, I need a bigger brush. Feel free to make them in chat. So, it's been so long since I even changed the size of the brush, and what was it? Wow, I am terrible. I don't even remember what the brushes are in. I thought, whatever. So this is a great start of the stream. I can't even change the size of the brush. Oh, there you go. Oh. Okay, so I'm only relatively stupid. The reality of it is that these happen to be hidden under my palette. Cool. Let's... Alright, we have a bigger brush. We're now brush here. So what we have now, sorry for the long digression, is this angle, and then we get here, and we have this angle, and we got nothing here. We might be able to figure something out with a bunch of additions and all of that. And you could very well go that way if you really wanted to, because you could easily enough build this triangle and figure out this angle. But we don't need to, because it's unnecessary. What we want though is, let's change color, let's be fancy. So what we actually want is this angle. I picked the worst possible color, didn't I? This one, here. So the easiest way to do it, and actually one of the quickest, will be to find the angle between two vectors. Now, because we've been using this as a front-loaded kind of component, where we just want to get this offset, as we mentioned, and this angle, and this one we can get from just these two bones, so work in reverse as well in theory. We know this vector, it's gonna be our negative x-axis, and then this vector is pretty trivial, because, well, pretty trivial to find, because we already have these in word space at the rest position, and it's easy enough to get the word position of that. Since we had the rest, actually, now we don't even care for the rest in this case. All we really want, if we wanted the rest angle, we will care about it. But in this case, we just want the word position of this and the word position of that. Do a subtraction, we'll get a vector that way, we'll measure its angle compared to that, and that should give us our angle. That is going to have an issue, and we are going to show what it is. So as usual, chat, you are my barometer for the sensicalness, for the sensibility of the stream and what is being said. If it doesn't make sense, let me know. If not, I'm gonna soldier on with this. So do we have, that's my second tab. Oh yes, we do have a graph that was messed up all kind of ways for us. We are already extracting the word translation. We're already using it for a bunch of things. Soon enough, I reckon after we're done with the full and maybe cleaned up a couple things, we'll need to start establishing boundaries for these things so that we can merge these items into proper components. We are interested in these for sure. We would like a little bit of that as well, so let us not get something that I had a shortcut for that now decided not to work. Sure, I'll take that. So let's graph that out to 1. Don't care for that. We do care for that one, and we do care for that one. Don't care for that, that, or that. Yeah, we do care for that. So what we can do actually is we could, so we have a plus, subtract. Yeah, we could just, get these 2 nodes and get ourselves a copy. We want a very similar setup, so why not? We want to get the word matrix here. Sure, other. There's only one input you can connect to, but sure, let's go for other and pop up a useless UI. Not bitter at all about it. And the other one we want, so we want to go in this direction, which normally means you will start from the destination. So input 3D, first one, second one. Do we have a diagnostic to spare somewhere on here? Probably not. By the way, chat, let me know if the audio is good, and let me know if the green screen starts flickering, because changing lighting conditions and everything, and I have the window open because it's a pretty hot day. There you go, airplane. All right, there goes my dream of a cooler room. Audio and green screen look good. All right. Let me catch my train of thought again. So yeah, I wanted some sort of small diagnostic here. Polygon. Let's use a sphere. We've used cubes in so far. We wanna. Oh yeah. I have to admit, it's the first time here at home that I've seen that pop up in a while. I thought I disabled it, but I don't mind it. It's not a terrible idea or anything, but normally don't use it. So now that looks like it's right. Like obviously it's compared, to the word position, and our sketchy little drawing is probably not gonna match, but it's okay. Close enough. Just enough to get an idea of what's going on. So it's showing there, but as we said before, like vectors, like we always draw them with some reference frame, because that's how we like to think, and we like things to be congruent and make some sense. But vectors don't really have a position like these. Just a quick refresher, we mentioned that in the math lessons in the pilot season. This vector, so this vector here, and if you placed it there, like there's no placement to it unless you're chaining vectors and you're trying to represent some operation. They're all absolutely identical provided they have the same direction and the same length. So let's get back to that. We do have these. We do want the vector between our negative x and that. So plus x is going that way. For convenience, again, this is one of the reasons why I like front loading some components when I can and extract minimum information. You can just toss stuff in the word space and do minimum computation, so long as you have some idea of what you're doing and you lock them down really hard for people not to mess with it later. We are good with that. We want angle between, and this is where, if you're not careful, and that's why you should always have animation of your full range of operations at hand, because just wiggling stuff around, you might forget what your domain of operations is and pay for it later on in pain, considerable amounts of pain. So we have one vector here. It doesn't matter the order of operations, which kind of is in a way part of the problem, and this is the problem, like the numerical problem. Not strangely enough, this is not Maya's fault this time. And we say the other one, we can literally just use -x, so we can punch that in ourselves. So chat is saying that audio still sounds good. We cool get ourselves, I guess. Let's you know, let's stretch these out. We want something to indicate whether we have the direction. Don't care for the translation to be here. We might actually care for the translation for diagnostic purposes, for the translation to be matching, just as a visual cue. So what we have here, and I actually like the angle between node and Maya. I think it's an example of a good node. It does one thing and only one thing. It doesn't have a million configurations or ambiguous states, and it does it pretty well. And while it's saying angle between two vectors, which in theory is one single angle, what it's actually doing is giving you the full set of the Euler rotation. It doesn't have a rotation order for that output, I believe, so I think that what you get is always x, y, z. But it doesn't matter a whole lot, because you can't really get a proper triplet anyway, so you don't have gimbal lock problems. Now, I imagine that will be the angle in Z, so because Z is coming out that way, but we can hook the load up and see what changes. So, and there you can start, well, that's just the direction being off. So you are getting 2 out of that. That is peculiar, to be honest. I would have expected just the 1. So let's not do that, and let's see if we can just get the Z. What do you mean with front loading? It's something I mentioned, I think, in the second episode. Do you have a 1 in the Z component of the second vector? No, I'm measuring, like in this case we're in word space, so I should be measuring against, oh, do I? Oh, thank you, you lifesaver. So somebody said I have a 1 here, and I didn't notice. I don't know why I got it. That would explain why that shenanigan there. But to make a long story short, what I mean with front loading is, I'll go back super quick just so people are reminded of why we're doing it. When you have something like the footroll, you want the footroll to have an effect on the IK, but then you want the IK to drive the foot. So if you conflate your foot and your footroll and everything into one setup, you have a cyclic dependency as well as a lot of other issues. But when you when you look at the footroll itself, you don't need the IK, you don't need a lot of stuff to do it. The main thing you want to extract out of these, as far as the IK is concerned, so what feeds into here, is basically the offset of the ankle and possibly this rotation for the buffering of the foot. So if instead of conflating the foot and having weird things where some of the IK goes into the footroll control and some of the footroll control stuff is like becomes foot and goes back into the IK and all of that. If you go like, okay, can I front load? Can I do all of my footroll computation that affects the IK beforehand? You save yourself a lot of trouble. That's what I mean with front loading. We are doing some calculation as early as possible before they actually get used in any meaningful way. So, with that said, actually, let's have a quick look at that, which might be, you shouldn't in theory do, yeah, this is not gonna make a real difference. So, I was expecting something slightly different, to be honest, in this case. -x, so it is giving us the correct angle, not in the right direction though, not as I would have expected it. It is giving it in the Z, which is correct. I don't want to spend too much time on these, to be honest, because I would like to see if we encounter the problem that I mentioned we would have had. Sorry, what I've been doing there is like change the rotation order for Z to be affected by the other axis. So because of the way this node was working and because of the way we're actually looking at the axis, I've already worked around the problem, as in the problem presented itself sooner than I expected. So not ideal. Can you take the angle output instead? Yes, you can, but that's axis angle. So you could do that, and you will get exactly the same result in this case. So it doesn't, like, axis angle is one way of describing a rotation, where you basically give it an axis that describes some general orientation in the word, and that will give you two parts of a Euler angle, and then you kind of rotate around that axis, which is kind of like orient everything with an aim constraint and then roll around it. So there's not a lot of difference in this case, but let me explain what the problem, I was hoping the problem would have shown itself at a later stage, but here's what is going on. So if you have two vectors like that, this angle is a measure of the angular momentum required to move this vector in the position of this one. Lot of words to say that it's basically always positive, which means that if your other vector, let's use multiple colors for these, so if we have our x basis vector like that, and the vector that we're trying to extract an angle from is that one, this angle alpha is basically going to be positive. It's going to be whatever this is, maybe 30 degrees and so on. Now, as our footroll can actually rotate that way as well, especially when you have the heel back, you encounter a problem sometimes, and you'll see it sooner or later in some setup, or if you use a technique like this, and that's why I really wanted to mention it. I was just hoping it would have presented itself in a different shape. This angle, whatever this angle happens to be, is also positive. There is no real difference between rotating. When you have two vectors, there's no real difference on what side, I guess, of your basis vector you're rotating to, and that can be a problem. And the other issue that you will see, but we wouldn't have had it in this case, is that if what you wanted was a rotation, let's pick another color again in this case, if rotation you wanted was more than 180 degrees, so if it was something like that, because your controller, whatever it is, uses Euler angle, so it can do spins and stuff like that, angle between should not, unless it's doing some incredibly silly black magic, and I really don't think it does, I've never witnessed it do it, it will give you this angle, because angle between is going to be the shortest path, if you want, between these two vectors. So that's something for you to keep in mind. Now, the 180 degrees limitation we wouldn't have, because for a foot, the way it rolls and the way we're doing it, we just never really have to deal with that kind of degree of freedom. Like, this is already, like, if you imagine the ankle here, this is already well broken like this. You'd be in tremendous pain if you did something like that. You could use it as exaggeration, or if some external force is exerting, like, on the foot a lot, like if you were to kick a ball and you wanted to, really exaggerate, sure, you could go that far, but you don't go mouse behind. And when you do the heel back, I mean, you could go, even further back than that if you wanted, but there's one point where eventually your tarsi are completely locked out from moving further, and things will look terrible by the contact between your bones and tarsi and ankle. So the 180 is not a problem, but because we're looking at the basis vector there, we would have had exactly these. So our heel back was going that way, and our foot roll forward was going that way, and you would have had to distinguish between the two. Now, anyway, because of the way this is laid out and all of that, it presented itself right away, and I had to rotate these around, and I could probably just negate the Z in that case, and it will be fine. Or the Maya node is doing a little bit of magic to find some ideal boundaries, whatever it is. but you just don't have this problem. So we're good right away. Hopefully that made sense. The solution to that, let me see what the values are. Yeah, so it's going negative, negative, negative. So it's positive here, so it's giving me a sign because it's using the other rotation. It's giving me a sine value. It is doing a little bit of black magic. If you had simpler, what have I done? Yes, I have undocked this. I did not want to. Please don't do it ever again. So because it's signing your value, if you had a simpler setup, or if you're using the operations row, if you're writing your own nodes, you would have had to deal with the problem. Now, one of the things you can do in that case is, instead of using this basis vector, which would have been convenient because our encode works off that, it would have been working off something like, you know, you find like, okay, my furthest that I can reach with a heel back is, say, around here. You use that as your basis vector and you add whatever offset you had to create between these two. So hopefully that makes sense. I was not counting on black magic helping us out here, but it did happen. So we'll take it. We'll take some beneficial white magic here. Party. So I hope you mean that you're late and you're not describing my explanation. That makes sense? Hopefully it does. Anyway, we have the angle between. It is what we wanted to use to drive this stuff. We can leave that in. It doesn't really matter. This is gonna be fun to rename all of that. I might actually do that off screen because I think it will be a waste of people's time. So yeah, it's not a lot we need to do in those regards, is there? We might need to negate it, but that's about it. We'll see. We might not even need that. What we want to hook it up to, so let's take these and let's bring it in here. Let's whatever this graph ended up being. So don't care for the inverse scale, but I'll sever those later. Let me find that one now. It's foot ankle. She's what? Yes, okay, that makes sense. The ankle control is already doing the work to get us the rotation. So, and this is the part where like I'm in dub whether it's premature to discuss rotation orders or not. I suspect it is because I wanted to show them with something else, which is the other reason why I picked the footroll. So we need to add to the Z rotation for these. Now, the work we do with these, I mean, right away you can see, oh, we've actually swapped the axis though, haven't we? So let's have a super quick look at one thing. So, okay. If that is in object mode, sorry, so if that is in gimbal mode, that would be more helpful. If we, because we're in XYZ, if we rotate X, nothing happens. Like you can see that the other two parts of the gimbal system, those three axes, aren't affected. If we rotate Z, which is at the end of that triplet, you can see that everything is affected. And if we rotate Y, only X is affected. So X being first here means that it's basically least affected. So in theory, we should be good to simply add our angle in there. If it gets, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it'll be a lot clearer to explain it when you start adding banking and stuff like that, and we have to prioritize the behavior. But if you want the, you know, empirical method of sorts, when you need to figure out rotation orders, and animators might throw a spanner in the works because they might want a different rotation order. Ultimately, we'll solve this differently anyway. What you want to try is, if you need to do something that is silly simple, like adding two angles, and you're adding them in a system that actually works off the triplet, like the triplet of Euler angles for rotation, try and set yourself up for success. Either you add an additional buffer so it happens after, which will be in this case the simplest thing, right? You get this foot ankle, you add another joint in between or something like that, and you only connect the angle between two there. Or if you have control over the rotation order, then you can usually harmlessly enough add to the least affected angle, which is, if you look at the rotation order of something, gonna be the first letter of that triplet. Again, hopefully that makes sense and it doesn't confuse things more, but we'll see. We say that there's no angle add, which means I'm about to see my graph being tossed around like a doll in the hands of a whimsical, annoying child. Plus minus average. I can't believe this is like maybe the additive mode of the double angle. Will the additive mode of the double angle actually just add the two numbers? So and in blend DA should be no additive double angle, because interpolate mode additive. I wonder if it adds the thing in the second wave. We'll see, because this might work for us. If you set it to multiply, clearly it will multiply by the weights and probably move from one to the other. But could it be this simple? Could we actually... Why do we have only input B? What's really? So input B is public and input A is super secret. So what is gonna be the result of that? See, it's an addition. We do have, it turns out, in the anim blend and node additive, we do have an angular addition, which is, hopefully, we'll see, we'll figure it out soon enough. So the X we want untouched, it restores everything I had years ago, and the Z, no, in this case we need to, sorry, we have the Z, but we want to swap a couple axes. Will that work? We'll see, we'll figure it out. What am I doing here? I'm doing something silly here. I am. So what I want to do is actually add the Z there to the X and use that for the X. Sorry, hopefully that did not confuse the hell out of everybody. Let's see. Did that get us anything even remotely looking like what we want? So something is happening, which is good. Let's see, it probably needs negating, which is okay. So as we do that, we should still see the same angle. Yeah, so that all looks correct. I am so concerned that this might be more confusing than helpful, but we'll see. So in the negative, this is rotating that way. We actually want it to rotate that way, so we definitely need to negate. And as we go forward, we want this to rotate that way, and it's not. So can we use these as a fuse multiply add? Because that would be pretty sweet. So if we want to negate what's coming out of there, that's not, it might not be what we want, but it's interesting. So you can kind of use this as a fuse multiply add, can't you? 45, yeah, what do you know? So what I'm doing here is that on XYZ, yeah, it doesn't look correct, but the numbers do. So let's have a look at where this is going wrong. Translate. So at that point, this is adding more than it should, maybe. So this is a minus 30 here. Oh, because we had, okay, I might know what is going on. Yeah, so we actually are in pretty good shape, I suspect, because all we want, now that we're rotating this correctly, originally I placed the joints to get some angles going, to get some sort of match, but what you want is actually the rotation, because we're forwarding the rotations only. Again, I hope that that makes sense. We normally would want to connect it to the same tarsi length that that is connected to. So this length of 4, and we'll take care of that again in the cleanup. We'll go in here. Chat is strangely silent. Either everybody's mesmerized by these operations, or everybody's just given up on it. So, to be absolutely fair, that ended up being easier than I thought. As in, I'm going slow because I was expecting a lot more stuff going wrong with that, and we seem to be quite lucky, strangely enough. Still here, yeah. Mostly I'm curious whether this makes sense or not for people. Anyway, so the other part we had was this one. We connected as the angle between these two. Not giving up yet. Does it make sense? Does this part make sense? Because I meandered a bit thinking, okay, look, this is gonna go really wrong, and it was like, okay, no, that actually worked out. We got pretty lucky, to be honest. So if the problems I mentioned that just did not occur, like, don't make sense to people, I might need to emulate, like, artificially put together those problems, just to show when they would occur, because we got very lucky with that. Anyway, so the angle of that, were we doing something funky with it anywhere, or were we rotate X? So that might need to be negated, and actually this is a good discovery, because we find that we have a fuse multiply add, so you can multiply values and add them all in one node. That's pretty useful. Now, so we can get rid, there was a unit conversion set somewhere, yeah, this one, which then we ended up severing, for the time being at least. It was really bothering me. It turns out we can do without a lot of that stuff. So, without dallying around further, so if I want to negate these, which is probably what I need to do, I can take the magic do everything for me node, and I know that if I could have just duplicated, it would have been quicker with it. And for now, let's the secret input. A is secret. You have to show all attributes to say. B, yeah, we're cool with B. You can use B. A, oh man, you gotta be a power user to use A, because A first is like real men and women. And I'm not gonna say the rest of what I thought of that sentence. So output -20, additive. Why are you not doing my bidding right now? And might need to refresh. So it's -23 here, and it's going out to a 23. So clearly something is not doing our bidding here. What can we do to fix that now? Sure. So that's what I mean. You know, I would have expected that. By you connected it. Yes, I keep doing it. I am an idiot. Thank you. See, this is why I need a live audience. Is it rotate X for us here? Someone said you connected the input to the RX. Yeah, so I used the pass-through, and I was like, why is it not negating? In this case, it's because I'm an idiot. Thank you very much. So there you go. I was fully expecting this to be like a 2-hour stream to get where we're at now. Well, no, maybe not 2 hours, but we got this far, making good time, and the rotation should still be reliable. So now gimbal is good when you want to diagnose things, but if you want to really mess with stuff and emulate a lot of animators, like start messing with the object mode, because that will do all kind of stuff under the hood to track what your trying to interpret what your cursor is doing in screen space. So we seem to be in strangely good shape for having just used a bunch of factory nodes without tweaking. I do not trust this, because I never trust things that just seem to have worked in my favor. Normally life doesn't work that way, but hey, we'll take it for now, and we'll make for a snappier stream. All making sense up to here. So we got the footroll hooked up, and more importantly, I mean, this might be easily confused for the footroll itself, but what we really wanted out of that, the footroll produces this, it produces the offset of the ankle. What we have done with this is actually, when you think about it, the foot itself, so that we can add FK controls to that. So, because we're still working in this very simple, like kind of unidimensional space that is just made of one planar offset and angles, it's pretty easy to do the rest of the work. We will want to add a couple controls in there. Trying to think if we want to do that or move on to something else. So we could do away with this chain entirely, and we're calling that sketch for now. Now that chain is, let's have a quick look at what we have and see if we can start cleaning things up a bit. So I'm comfortable with the ankle staying in the sketch for now. That's a rolled ankle and all of that. This is stuff that needs sorting out in proper components. But the foot should be super easy to do at that point. And it's the one that will be blending between IK and FK. We could do something real quick for that, sure, why not? So, don't do it. Whatever, mine. In this case, I'm just gonna be ignoring you. So, I don't remember exactly what we were doing. I'll have to maybe rewatch the standards as set in the pilot season. But for now, we're gonna work, like we're working to no side, so middle side, let's say. And let's say that we call this component to something like that. For this one, we do want an input. Do we care for an output? Probably not. This is the foot, which should probably inherit its guidance from the configuration of the footroll, so we might not add a guide yet. So let's spare ourselves the, well, we'll put them in for completeness, but I don't think we're gonna need any of these. Pretty much all we can or want to implement for now is the control layer of these. So this is gonna stay word oriented. Oh, I want to multi-edit. I don't want to pull up the spreadsheet. So we're gonna go down-inherit transform, down-inherit transform. I mean, this is word, so it doesn't really matter. Just ensure that this is not propagating any rotations or funky stuff like that, because this is when we want to start working in word space. Okay, sure, I clicked inside but you didn't move it. I'm okay with that, I'm used to it in Node Editor. Sure, we can keep that around for a little bit longer. These should have nothing, so we don't care to set up the output yet, get rid of that. We do care for the component, maybe just to keep an eye on it. We do care about the input, mostly mental space, don't care for the guide, care for the control. Woo! Alright, so first thing we want is a couple buffers, so let's get us that, and we will want a couple controls. I know I say don't use circles, and you really shouldn't. I just don't want to spend time on stream doing silly icons. I'm really torn about it though. Do I practice what I preach? Should I? So let's start with one thing that we can actually determine. We have said that this is gonna be, we want to figure out some orientation that we're gonna follow, and because the foot is kind of bound to be rolling down the Z, and so you got pitch, yaw, and roll anyway. This is the pitch and this is the roll. Always use circles. Never use circles. It's like for stuff that have rotation, like circles are such a bad idea. So you got the pitch that is there, you got the roll that is there, and then you got the yaw that is there. Our pitch will have to be swiveling around the X, our roll is clearly going to be around the Z, so we can say, look, whatever we're going to do, we want to work with the roll down the Z. So if you have bones and stuff like that, and you want to orient things, like now by chance we happen to be in that configuration, sure, I'll do myself an icon. So we'll be front on like that. See, this is the stuff that I only do on stream like once every 15 years, whatever. Well, that's a bit dramatic, but and then I always like promptly forget. Come on. So it will be curve tool, CV curve tool. Sure, I want linear, uniform chord length. And what is it? X in this case for the snap. I'm doing better than I expected to do, to be honest. Come on. Okay. And close curve. No, not here. Okay. Sorry, I gotta enter, I guess. And no, shift. Really? I mean, come on. How hard can it be? Fine. I'll use the menu. Open, close. And that should be word centered. Ooh, that's nasty. I had proportional on. Did not care for that. I also had the, okay, so I had the snap on, and that's why when I was holding the snap on, it was actually turning it off, and I wasn't getting the snap. Sure. That's on me anyway, I guess. That will work. Now, I don't want any more snap, thank you very much. I cannot orbit that view, I know it. Is this centered the way I want it? So let's go out of component mode. Yes, it is centered the way I want it. Component mode. For the pivot, I would like, oh, scale doesn't do work, does it? Sure, I'll move the pivot, why not? This is so unnecessarily wasteful of your time. Audience, I'm sorry, but it's the way it is. I don't plan these things, it's a stream. And sure, we'll take it. It's brilliant. I might also want to save, because it's been close to an hour. Well, set scale sent it to object. Yeah, object would have done it as well, that's true. For the record, I don't resent Maya for not having scale word. It's like mathematically scale to word doesn't make sense for the record, so it's okay. And just at one point, like, I don't like doing these things, especially not wasting people's time. So I grow weary of it. Come on, okay, this shortcut works, and we are gonna call these Darcy control. It will be two eyes, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would be. So Darcy and we're gonna say that this is the foot, so we're gonna go foot M. So why have I done that? Darcy control. Let us use that, and do have a group. We're gonna use that as a buffer. Parenting doesn't work. Yeah, sure, whatever. Nothing new there. Gonna call these. What were we using before? Something like this to buffer it. Control buffer, or I don't know. Like the convention I use for myself and that I will establish at work will look very close to these. And let's use that. So there is some repetition. Now, actually, I don't need that. I can just duplicate that. SOT. In this case, it's like, for me, this is a buffer, as in it buffers the transform. I'll have to rewatch my own videos. Don't take the naming and interface was what you did in the original. Okay, cool. Because SRT is something that I use when I'm saying this is just describing a transform. Buffer means that this is a transform, but it's not supposed to be used by anything except the object that is underneath. It basically replaces messing with the pivot. Is the green screen still fine? Because the lighting changed a lot. Seems to be. So we are gonna call these toes. We're working to plurals. Let's stick to that. Maybe not T-toes. This is exciting. I'm sure everybody's thrilled about this part of the stream. Toes control. So no, parent's still not working. It was working 5 minutes ago, and it's not a joints thing apparently. Like maybe joints knock it out. I was wondering how you were keying. It's an OBS thing. It's you can literally, like, OBS is pretty amazing, especially for being free software. So it's just a chroma key. I have an actual green screen behind myself, like behind me. It was it was fun. Like I was talking about it in pre-stream. It was fun to light it. Hey, this is one of the reasons why I stream, why I have a YouTube channel. It's like it's fun for me to experiment with these things. So, like this has been a very chatty, informal stream, I guess, but sometimes you gotta do that stuff. Now we can move that away for now. We're just gonna hook the parameters anyway, so we're kinda good with that. Sure. Let's start doing the transplant of our connections so that we do get some coherence in there. I really don't care for shapes here, Maya. Please take them away. It's not like I set the preference several times. Also don't care for you to compact components in case I start using them. Control Darcy, sorry, buffer, Darcy control, toast buffer, toast control. And alright, now what we do have in here that we are using, and oh, that's the heap one. Okay, that's I'm looking at the FK there. Let's select from there. So we are using 1 and 2, which means if I want to transplant, this is what I should be copying. Let's add that and see what happens. See now, like this is I like. It's the node editor has done something that is perfectly sensible. It's taken the stuff I had, it pasted it in with exactly the connections I had, it respected the one, it did by chance. I think it was dumb luck. But thank you, for once you have done my bidding and something that made some sort of sense. Now what we've done with that is, with the ankle control, is we're changing the base space of the foot. So we don't want to drive the control itself, we just want to buffer it. We want to give it we want to set its buffer, we want to give it its pivot, its base transform, whatever you want to call it. So to do that, we want to emulate all the same connections we have here, which will be, so I could even, let's not disconnect the original just yet in case I do something silly. So we want to emulate that, we want to emulate that for sure. See, this is where I will like it. Shift and drag, please copy my connection instead of like deciding to disconnect it, but whatever. So we got that working. We were getting the translate for these from somewhere clearly, so set to 1, which means it shouldn't make too much of a mess. Am I not? Oh, I'm probably inheriting, am I not? Yes, I must be. Yes, we're inheriting from limited ankle, so we might consider that an input. Let's leave that hanging for just a moment. We definitely care for that buffer to have the right angle compared to the parent, which should be equivalent to what we're no Maya, no, it should be equivalent to what we're doing here. I have started talking to Maya like it's a bad puppy, and that is not a good sign. There's a clear mental decline going on here. So that rotation is also done. Now what we care for is to set, okay, no, not that. What we care for here is to set that to 0, and that we'll need to, come on, we'll need to use as an input as well. So notes wise, if we want to, you realize now that it has to reflow your graph in principle. Yeah, I don't know, I thought my relationship with Maya was largely non-antagonistic. But you know, maybe some days Maya is a bit pricier than others, and yeah, what did you do on the carpet? Not on the carpet. Yeah, Maya does stuff on the carpet, it's happened. But I promised myself minimal to no swearing in my streams and channel, so I will not complete that fault. But anyway, insofar, I gotta say, and I'm jinxing it, so let me say, This has gone better than I expected. I don't know if it's interesting to watch or not. I mean, it's a lot of modeling, which inevitably we'll have to do, but mostly everything has worked out more or less as I expected it to, and in fact, I did not get a chance to show some of the issues that would arise. Moving on. So we do have a couple controls. We might as well like do some proper modeling of this stuff. So we don't want any of this. Let's start cleaning up. Even if we're using vanilla Maya, we can clean up a little bit here. So we don't want this stuff. We still do want to see something in the channel box. You know, we haven't written proprietary tools and fancy interfaces. Let us try and set ourselves up for success. So, and one note actually, like if you, I do a lot of stuff sort of like not really subconsciously, but out of habit. What I'm doing here is working, and this is something that I quite like in general. When in doubt, work from the outsides, from the known parts of the problem, and from the boundaries of the problems that you have scope. Work inwards. So I know that the foot is at the end of everything. I will work on that because it means that if anything changes, you know, we'll change whatever its input is into the foot. But it's easy to scope. You always know when you do something in it, you go, okay, I know exactly, like as I do it, I can figure out exactly what needs to go into it, and you go, okay, this is taking shape. Same reason why, if I know that I can front load some computation, it's when you have something that's well front loaded, then it's easy enough to move it into a component if need be. And very often you actually will not want to if that came out clean. But the main point is, like, it's at the beginning, it's pretty easy. It depends on nothing, it's pretty easy. So working from the ends tends to work well for me. And it happens to be very easy to clean up. So this poem from a comment in chat saying, it's cool to see a clean component emerging from the sketch. It's don't take my process and lift it one-to-one. Experiment, find your own. Like, it's not necessarily gonna work for everybody. But it's important that you learn to iterate and then elaborate on that iteration. And for you, it might be inside out. You might need to be, you might be the kind of person that needs to work on the core of a component, get it really down, and then see it expanding outwards towards the edges of what it interacts with. For me, it tends to be working from the boundaries inwards. So that aside, let's add to the input. I think we weren't doing anything super fancy with inputs in the pilot season, so for now I'm gonna keep it simple and just add the attributes I need there. What I want for something like this is, I was about to point at the screen with my pen, is definitely this length. I don't think we care for anything at the end of the toes, so we don't need these. And we will definitely, because we're working word to word space, we'll definitely want the matrix or an SRT of sorts for that. So sure, let's get ourselves one float. We don't need limits for it. Let's default it to what we're using for now. Let's say that we never want it to be negative. We can change our mind later on if need be. Let's say that our feet are never going to be longer than 50. Bad idea, like use soft min and soft max if you can, but at this point I'm being a little bit lazy to try and hasten. And we are going to call that tarsi length. There's no need to be fancy, so we add that, and yes, it should have made it keyable, which is what I wanted. Now the other one we want is a matrix, which Maya will not kindly provide us with. Sure. That was me debugging some nasty stuff with the Maya mix-ins. Now double angle, so we don't need, so there's no minimax. What we want to add is a matrix, for the record. That's what I was trying to say, or what I was trying to do. And we want to say that that's the word space for the component, and it's coming from the start. So let's say that for the sake of argument, if we add a chain, if we have a clear sequence, we're gonna call that the start matrix. Now this is soft min and max. Matrix cannot have soft min and max. AT is the attribute type, and I think it's like this will be I'll see, like I'll have to look at the docker, which I don't have open, and a matrix cannot be keyable. So that should get us what we want. No, type specified for new attribute is unknown. Might be all lowercase, or it might be just matrix. Can I? Okay, I'll take a matrix. It might be a double matrix actually, but we don't care all that much just yet, unless it turns out to be buggy. Let's see what happens, and then we'll see. So when you write nodes, you tend to often use float matrices, because double matrices tend to be, which is just the level of precision, tend to not play nice with some transforms in the graph. I've had plenty issues, and I superstitious, well, not so superstitiously, actually mostly use float matrices everywhere I can now in nodes. So with that done, we were looking at, where was it, the road ankle offset? Is that what we called it? Is that what is getting us our stuffs? Just, yeah, it looks like it. So I should be good to just get that for now. Get the word for that. And that's just establishing boundaries. This is clearly pass-through, so if you ever do, if you work this way and then you write yourself an optimizer, a lot of nodes can go away if the animators don't need to see them. Like every time you see a pass-through, you can just, you know, you go through it, you connect stuff directly, and then you delete the pass-through. But again, not something that we care about just yet. We should have a decomposed matrix here. Yes, the plugin was loaded. Now if I do this, yes, you will ask me if I want to use the only port that you can use and then not do it, probably because I misclicked by 1 pixel. No, something else. So input matrix, was I connecting the wrong thing? Maybe I was connecting the array for, but the X for matrix is actually singular anyway. And that should get us an SRT, and we, for the buffer for these, we don't really care all that much, not just yet at the very least. For the, oh, okay, did I make boo-boo? No, not really. I mean, we just need a slightly more complex output for something like that. So let's stop for a second, because I was thinking if I want to actually add another parent item, but we don't really need to at this point. We might even just go in with several parameters, but for now, let's compose and decompose for the sake of cleanliness. You connect the word matrix of the transform instead of the matrix attribute. Oh yes, thank you. No, that's okay. Oh no, it's not okay, thank you. Man, you're on fire, Dan. But what we want to do anyway is compose, and this is a waste of nodes in computational terms, but we would like to have clear inputs and outputs, and then we'll deal with the performance side of it later. Come on. So, okay. No. Show me your secret attributes. Thank you. Input rotate. So in this case, I will actually disconnect. Yes, I can disconnect, because I can. In this case, I will go out 1-to-1 for everything. I don't need weird swaps or stuff like that. Everything will be formed the way we need it. And we want the road ankle offset to provide us with its word matrix transform. So we might actually want to split matrices for the translation and for the rotation. Yeah, see, this is why I'm not fond of doing the cleanup live. It's because you gotta give it a little bit of thinking and dumbly stare at things. So I only care for the rotation from these, so I could actually merge the word translate to something like that. So I could either add this directly or decompose and get the word. Choices. Probably gonna decide to compose straight up. I could also multiply really, but that's local. So yeah, I will need to multiply. I will need to get the rolled ankle and then multiply the blend. So this is just a local rotation that I'm getting, right? So it's the angle between, this is the ankle control that's adding the rotation. It is using the local, so I believe that I can use a straight up multiply of this rotation by that word. So this is the stuff we did in the pilot season. Sorry, I was occasionally like, I mean, I can't just always go 100 miles an hour. Occasionally I do need to think. What is it? Matrix mode matrix. The math lessons from the pilot season are necessary here, but hopefully, you know, well, you can still find them. So the long story short about these is that we have a transform coming from these that we care about, that is the local rotation of that ankle control. We are adding to its angle, we're composing a matrix, so what we are getting here from that rotation is the part that we're interested in is all localized. And then we have that rolled offset ankle, and this is where things get a little bit tricky, which we only care? Yeah, we only care for the translation of that. So because the rotation that rolled, let's have a look, let's make super sure, but the did you just rearrange everything? You did. The translation that it's getting is there, and it's not getting any rotation from anywhere, so that should be inherited from what is coming up above. Rolled ankle offset. In theory, we could basically just use our matrix and add to it. Anyway, that is completely throwing me off right now. It's, I don't know what the hell is happening with this graph. So let me see. This is the part where you go like, okay, there's bad UIs and there's bad UIs, and you know, glitchy, like it's fine, you can laugh and joke about it, but when you start using the graph as your mental map of what you were doing and this happens, it's like, Autodesk, seriously, fix this stuff, because this is not acceptable. So now let's spend a lot of time just reordering nodes around. That's thrilling. So rolled ankle offset, we're going in to the foot component, and I might need to undo some stuff because now I don't even know what I was originally connecting to. We want the buffer. Let's do one bit at a time so that we know that we got something working. We want to take a matrix here, we want to compose a matrix, put it in the input, and be able to decompose it into something meaningful inside our component. We know that the translation should be fairly trivial, so let's start with that and basically go a bit more visually. That's the foot tarsi control buffer. Now as we go through our animation, it's not limited clearly, whereas this is. So obviously enough, we are not grabbing the right item, and we probably want to use the limited ankle instead. So the limited ankle should not be rotating, I imagine, so let's try and use that instead and see what happens. And see, now I'm afraid of graphing the inputs of that thing because there's no knowing whatever the hell it's getting stuff from. Not a good place to be. That's when you know that your UI is failing the user. When the user user is afraid to do stuff. Okay, so that works. If we use the limited ankle, you get what you would expect for the foot buffer. That's good. Man, I'm ranting today, but it's just so annoying when that stuff happens. So that's fine. We probably should add ourselves some test animation. So that's good. We can work to that. Now the next thing that we need to hook into it is the rotation. Now we're using the word matrix directly here, so we might have to do a little bit of compose decompose. We don't want to add in the early edge here, but we need to, so that actually, so let me check one thing. So the limited ankle is fine in word space actually, which is good because it means that we can literally compose, at least for that we don't need really your secret attributes, all of them, thank you. Means that we can literally grab its local space, input translate, and it's going to be the same of the word space. And by the way, if you guys have questions, please start piling them in chat now, because the moment I get this stuff hooked up, or if it takes too long, possibly even a little bit sooner than that, I will be calling it. We'll be going for a while, and it's getting really hot in here. So the next thing we wanted to do was getting the rolling going. So that foot ankle is under. Really? Is it gonna be that simple? Is it? It's possible, because we're already putting it under the limited ankle. Foot ankle, foot toes, foot tip. See, at some point you just gotta start severing stuff and like do it clean and see what happens. And it turns out that again, the work with it was obvious enough, it seems, that we can work reasonably. So is the limited ankle ever rotating? I would guess not, unless this should not in theory be rotating it. Yes, that's good, because what that means is that the rotation part of this is basically the word space rotation, which also means that it becomes a lot less painful than I was afraid it would have been. Thank you. One stroke of luck once in a while, that's nice. We did have a compose matrix here that we had hooked up the rotation, and this is hooked up the same way it is there, it seems. So it's quicker for us to show the magic attributes that will not show me if I just use your shortcuts, and hook up the translating here. Hopefully this is still making sense for you guys. Now please connect. Okay, I said please, that worked. That didn't. I probably had the edge selected as well. So output matrix, let's not make the same mistake again. Now that's decomposed. Like, we'll have to look at rotation orders. Now we have so many things at default that this is probably going to be kind to us. So good, now we have at least that figured out, connected through an interface. Going for 20 minutes of me barely not swearing but really wanting to, but we won. For some definition of winning. We're also saving, because I keep jinxing it. See, before I said something like it was going well, and then obviously suddenly everything went to crap. Murphy's Law at work with whatever jinxing corollary. Next thing we want is to actually have an interface for that. So what do we call this? Toe angle, whatever. But anyway, this is a static angle that comes from outside. It will come from our front-loaded footroll, so it needs to be part of the interface. I really want it to be an angle because I don't care for unit conversions, which means I will bring up our trusty. And you don't need these parameters to be keyable when they're passed through. You definitely don't want min-max. And we do want it to be called whatever it is, toe angle. Let's go with toe angle, we can always rename this stuff. This part of the interface, because it's not going to be animated, it's purely the private interface component, doesn't need particularly sensible names right away. Or rather, you're better off having them, obviously, but and it won't show it because it's not keyable, I imagine. So, but if it added it, did it add it? Or did I? Yeah. Okay, anyway, I have to admit that this has me stumped. Did I added it to the wrong thing, sure. Oh, I don't, fudge. I'm not syncing the selection, so I probably, yeah, I added it here. So let's delete that, and let's do it again on the input. God knows where I've added some stuff, maybe then. I'll have to check that. So input toe angle, now that's working, and previously, because this is the rest angle of the buffer, what we want to do is pass it through here instead of directly, so that all our boundaries are clear, and that should be our foot component done. Okay, I'll call it a win for now. The cleanup I'll do off stream for some of this stuff, because it's just not a good idea to waste people's time showing name cleanup and bookmarking graph positions, but hopefully all of this is clear. So lots of noddling. It ended up being, wow, hours of noddling, but what we got is now the offset and the angles properly hooked up, these transmitting the minimum information necessary. This at this point is purely diagnostic. We could literally delete those and everything should be fine. And I'll save again. This is just a control layer, so we can stash it out of the way. This is the toes control under the buffer. This is the tarsi control under the control buffer for the tarsi. This is our composition from the input. And yeah, I reckon I'm calling it on that for this part. I think your node editor is not syncing the selection. Yes, that's correct. I had to put it back on. It must have been a shortcut, or I must have misclicked something, but it was for a very short time, I believe. So I don't think about the garbage around like the attributes we wanted, which is the tarsi length, the start matrix, and the toe angle are all on the input, and we haven't added anything else, I believe. It's a funny thing, especially, so the stream is now 1440p, by the way, and that means that my recordings are as well, so the YouTube stuff should be a higher resolution. Okay, it might also mean that there might be a long delay. Would you reuse that tarsi and toe controls for both IK and FK legs? Yes, I will definitely do that. The idea of doing it this way is that, and it might not be clear because we have so much stuff coming through, but the idea behind that is that doing it this way, all of these components will be responsible for the foot component, which is really simple right now, is to basically allow you to offset in a way what the tarsi, what the tarsi and the toes do. That's all you want it to do. You don't want it to do anything else. Now, obviously, the deforming part of that, I'm rotating something. Yeah, the deforming part of that will be the one that actually goes out to the geometry or to your constraints or to whatever rigid binding method you use. And what happens is that if you then have FK and IK for the leg, these properties where you have, and that is why I wanted this stuff done this way, this property where you're setting their default value this way, getting them from the IK, and that's why I say, look, we'll have to rename these because this is clearly the IK input, becomes relatively irrelevant, because if you want to blend these between FK and IK, you actually have very, very little work to do, which is in this case, you only have one angle. To blend it out of this input that's coming from the footroll, you only have one angle in this buffer where you need to do a linear average between 0 and 20 or whatever your rest angles are if they're different, and you're pretty much done. or between whatever the angle coming from the roll is and your actual rest, and that's it. That's you done with that. And the same goes for this part, and that's why I like to try and establish those connections early, and I don't want too many objects in the way, because now this translate is coming from I'm composing and decomposing so that the translate and the rotation come from one single source. If I blend these out to 0, then you have basically, or in 0 being, sorry, to 0 I should say, to the rest, which might be some fixed values. These will be your FK. The IK is just an offset on what the rest values are. The FK is a direct manipulation, like it's direct addition to those rest values, and that is it. So it becomes very, very easy to blend rigs that are set up like these. So that's the best thing I've heard this year, and possibly last year too. It's okay, as in you find it useful. If so, I'm glad. If you haven't caught up to the pilot season, there's a lot of this stuff going on in that about why I tend to do things this way personally, and some of them have been well embraced. So, and I'm certainly not the only one that works this way. I'm definitely gonna call it here, because this feels like a good point to leave things for now. There's a component that's kind of done, and it's been enclosed. We do have, yeah, the footroll is going out. Something I've always found unnecessarily complicated in my setups. Like this is not free. Working this way isn't completely free. Like there is a certain like cognitive overhead that you have to take care of compared to just being able to click around and put things together and all of that. But whenever it comes to revisions, it's a lot easier. And whenever it comes to blends, like the more stuff you can isolate cleanly and reduce to, hey, rest plus something or rest multiplied by something, which is very often how a lot of this stuff goes, the easier it is going to be to make it change states. So it's a nice setup. What does the future hold? We still have work to do for the legs. I mean, this is by no means finished. The body itself is so actually I like the question, but I don't want to belabor too much on the future of the stream. It's a little bit day by day for me, or week by week. I would definitely like to finish the leg and body. So this is alright. We got a foot. We've demonstrated the basic idea. We need to clean these up. I might do some cleanup, as in literally cleaning up the scene and the names and stuff like that. I might do that off stream because I don't want to waste people's time. But even after that, we want to. We do want this stuff to start having a kind of a clearer and sharper focus to know exactly what is going on, exactly what is going where. Then once we have enough of that, we can start getting rid of some of the diagnostic things and move on to adding controls, because right now this is displaying that the numbers work, but there's still no components really other than what we just added here. So probably the IK leg after that, and once we're done with the foot, the IK leg is gonna be next, because there's some good lessons to be done with IK. The body itself is mostly just a rigid bind, so that's gonna be irrelevant. Then FK and IK, and showing how to blend rotations and all of that. Then we're probably gonna go back to the footroll to make it more complex for two reasons. One, we want to show how an existing component that's been cleaned up can be upgraded. Iteration like this season is all about iterating the rigs through the various stages. How can you iterate a component that's already been, if not finalized, at least cleaned up? And that also gives us a chance to introduce rotation orders and chains of consequences and stuff like that. As part of all of that, and at this point I'm going fuzzy because it's a while away, we will start introducing into the rig. People probably know about it. We'll start having more things like expressions and maybe some non-optimal setups and all of that. And for didactics, for the sake of teaching, you do want some issues. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't get the angle issue I was expecting. Because then you can explain, look, this is the problem, this is how you solve it, or this is why you do otherwise. If you just tell people, hey, do it this way, I mean, I don't find it to be of any value. And that will eventually, you know, once we add the body, which is going to be the least amount of work of the lot, probably, we're going to get into the actual graph evaluation and why does parallel, like why does my FDG and parallel, and probably not going to move towards the mesh, so we're not going to do transforms or talk about GPUs this season. So it gets fuzzier and fuzzier as, you know, the further you go, because some of this stuff is per the moment, it depends on what proceeding through the rigging, what comes out as necessary next. Any other questions? I hope I didn't whinge too much, but man, when the node editor starts going berserk like that, it's tough to talk all the time. And while you're doing that, you're still trying to figure out your numbers in the head, and then your nodes that literally represent your mental map of how things move forward just go out of whack. You're like, really? That's like being slapped in the face mentally. So yeah, Autodesk, fix the node editor. All right, no more questions forthcoming, which is often the case with modeling streams. And oh wow, the camera is really burnt out now. You can tell that the light outside has gone up. 1440p and green screen. Go us. All right, thanks everybody, and I'll see you for the next stream or